So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Photo Conversations, where we have conversations about photography, film, and so much more about life. Well, specialization is one of those modern concepts that have been perpetuated in our society for centuries, I would say. And one of the things that specialization was meant to achieve was efficiency, effectiveness, and of course, maximum productivity. I mean, then how would workers be able to produce high quality, effectively, and efficiently? So it came as a result of the need for efficiency and effectiveness and productivity. Basically, during the industrialization era, where where the production line became like the most important invention of the time. So when you look at our education system, it is geared towards, or it is designed for specialization. When you start going to school from nursery school to primary, secondary, and of course university, it works like kind of like a funnel, starting from the general subjects learning and finally zeroing down to the most specific subjects like surgery, aviation, engineering, law, and we all know these professions that require very specialized knowledge. I would say specialization in itself is not a problem. It is actually a very good thing. But again, I would say that there are people that are not meant to fit in the specialization mold that requires you to learn one subject and become a master of that. And I would say I'm one of those people that would not, I'm one of those people that would not fare very well in a specialization-oriented society. Just to give you a spoiler alert, this video is not researched. This video is not based on like hard science knowledge. It is my own sentiment, and make sure you take this with just a grain of salt. Do not take my word for the gospel truth, because this is only sentiment that I'm sharing with you based on my my experiences, based on what I believe in as a person, based on my personal philosophy. So specialization in itself is not the challenge, because it helps us get certain work done faster and a lot easier, because there are people who have mastered the art of doing this work faster and more efficiently. The issue that I have with specialization is that specialization underutilizes the potential of the human being. Because I believe that when we are born or at birth as babies, we are an empty slate. We are a plain slate of paper, and that then gets to be populated with programs that come from society, that come from school, that come from our families. And then, unfortunately, these programs or this conditioning is mainly geared towards specialization. There is prestige in being a specialist. At least I've been to hospitals and I see maybe a cardiologist walk across the hallway, and someone says, "Oh man, that is the cardiologist," or "Man, that is the neurosurgeon, the only one in this hospital." There is prestige to it, and of course there is good remuneration for being a specialist, and there is also, a good standing in society as a specialist. When people say, "Okay, you go to Council Watanda, or you go to Engineer James," there is a certain aura of prestige and of respect that comes with specialization. And no doubt, I think it's a good thing. People should be awarded and respected for the time they have put into the work that they do and what they've been able to contribute to society. But then I ask myself, if all I've studied is the law, the question for me has always been, is this all that I can be? if all I've studied and mastered is aviation, is that the best that I could be? If all I've studied is education or academics, or I'm a teacher or a lecturer or professor, is that all there is for me on this planet? And such questions get me thinking that we can be whatever we want to be at whatever part of our life that we choose. And that actually reflects in my own life as a person. I have been trying out different things at different stages of my life, and trying to understand them and trying to see if I'm built for these things. But then I've also come to believe that nobody's built for anything. I've had people say, in fact, I've had people brag and say, in our family, for us, we have that thing in our DNA. We are doctors or we are lawyers. But unfortunately, there's no such thing as you're built for this or you're built for that. Well, it is true that there are certain qualities that are deeply embedded in our DNA, but to say that you are born a doctor or you are born a leader or whatever, I don't buy it. I don't buy it because I believe we are born an empty slate, and the programming in our background contribute immensely to who we become eventually. And unfortunately, who we become is usually a specialized path, a specialized vocation. Give you a biblical example. When you look around us and see what God has created around us, do you ever think about the fact that God is actually a generalist? Because he's an artist, he's a scientist, there's science in what he does, there's art in what he created, the horizons, the sun, the mountains. And when you look at the human body, you think, oh my God, God must have been a scientist. And when you see all these other things that nature has given us, you see that God was actually not a specialist, but rather a generalized specialist, because of course everything that he made is almost perfect, or actually perfect. So even God himself is a generalized specialist. And we have this saying that goes, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Well, it discourages when you think about it, because the idea is you do not develop roots, or you do not plant your roots in a specific subject, and then you jump from one to another. You do so many different things, but at surface level or at a basic level, which would be discouraging. But for me, if I look at life from an experiential perspective of living rather than a productivity perspective, I would say being a jack of all trades and a master of none pretty much serves me well. For the worldview that promotes productivity and consumerism, of course, specialization is the way to go. So for me, I would say it's important to actually live sort of like a hybrid of specialization and also being a jack of all trades, because there are certain things that you need to specialize in just long enough to be able to make a living out of them, but then not so much that it's all that you know in life. So there's a gray area for me. You can be a specialist, but at the same time, you can also be a jack of all trades. And that's what I call a generalized specialist, or a special generalist, whatever the semantics. The other example that I'll give you that is biblical is Jesus. Jesus' vocation or calling was to save humanity. Salvation was his specialization, because I would imagine if God sent Jesus Christ, his only begotten Son, to come and save humanity. But then we also realize that along the journey of saving humanity, he also became a carpenter, and he made chairs and tables and all sorts of furniture for humanity. So I also think that on your journey to specialization, there's opportunity in between to help you or to enable you experience other things. And these experiences sometimes are what mold you and build you to become even a better specialist. Because I would say there are certain aspects of a craft that can can only be learned from other activities of life. I'll give you an example of like sports. When you do sports, you learn that people work in teams. You learn about teamwork. You learn about perseverance. You learn about grit. You learn a lot about you learn how to coordinate your body. You learn so many things from sports. So if you've never done sports, there are certain things you might never actually realize, even when you become a specialist at another thing. So aspects of one craft eventually sneak into another field of work in which you might actually be a specialist. So there's nothing wrong with trying out different things. And I would say, instead of becoming a specialist, I would rather just organically follow through with my life experiences and develop competences within the areas of my own life that come to me naturally. I'll give you an example. I became a photographer not because I was built to be one, but because the circumstances at the time presented photography to me as an opportunity to learn something new, and I did that. I play a little bit of music, I play the guitar, I write songs, not because I'm the best or I'm meant to be, but because the environment I was in at the time kind of exposed me more to that kind of thing, and I followed through. And currently, I'm also pushing into the world of architecture and building tiny homes. And one would wonder, like, how did you become this? Where did you learn all this? This comes from my high school experiences in the dormitory. When I was at high school, we were living in tiny cubicles that had decors. And these bunker beds were three, like triple decors, we used to call them. So you'd sleep three people on one decker within a space of 1 by 3 or 2.5 meters. And I would say for me, that was the most interesting part of my life, was the most exciting part of my life. I had a small box, and it had all my belongings that I needed for the entire semester or the entire term. So for me, that has pushed me to go into constructing tiny houses, picking interest in tiny houses. And the reason is that I feel that we overglorify the need for space as human beings. Yes, it's important to have space, but I always ask myself, if I lived in that space, and from what I remember, I was the happiest when I was, living in that tiny space with three colleagues. So sometimes the experiences we get to experience, or the experiences we live, are what eventually push us towards certain professions, and then you move from one to another. So I'm very sure that when I experience something else, I could gravitate towards that. Now I'm currently picking up interest in welding because I'm seeing how the welders do the work, and I'm loving it. I'm like, oh, how about I just use electricity and fire to build a house? So I'd say the best way to live, in my opinion, would be to organically learn things along the way as you experience them, other than setting out, this is what I'm going to be, and that's exactly it. There's nothing wrong with it if you want to be a specialist. But I'm only saying I feel that experiencing life to the fullest, and also creating these new connections in your mind as a human being, requires you to be sort of like a jack of all trades. And that is something that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you've learned a thing or two from this. And I would say let's go out there and become specialized journalists.